Welcome to episode 49 of the Strength in Words podcast. Today I am speaking with Kayla O'Neill, a former birth to three early interventionist who has worked with children with developmental delays and coached parents and caregivers on strategies to encourage their infant or toddler's development. She has now taken that passion and put it into her writing on the website Parenting Expert to Mom, where she shares strategies to encourage early learning in daily routines. She's currently a stay-at-home mom, taking some time off from teaching to learn, enjoy, and raise her son, and is actually, at the time of this recording, also, I think, 37 weeks pregnant with her second baby.
Yes.
Kayla, welcome. And how are you feeling?
Good. Yeah, pregnant.
Exactly. Good. Well, thanks for coming on to the show. And I've asked you to come on today to speak a bit about early literacy. And first, though, I would love to just hear a bit about you. What brought you to the kind of work you're doing today?
Yeah, like you said, I worked in early intervention for about 6 years. I mainly worked with that birth to three age. So working with the babies and toddlers, doing a lot of assessments and evaluations and home visits, a little bit in the classroom, but mostly home-based. And yeah, we really focused on learning within daily routines, teaching parent strategies that you can do every day that encourage development. Yeah. And so did that for 6 years. And then we actually made a big move to Indiana and for my husband's work, and ended up becoming a stay-at-home mom. And I really miss connecting with families and parents and other professionals that worked in early childhood. So I thought I'd start a blog, and I started parentingexperttomom.com, and I get to write about everything I talked about with families and the things I do with my own son too. And with the new baby, I'm sure I'll have lots of more ideas of the newborn and that fun stage when they're just so small too. So yeah, just wanting to get back into the world of early childhood.
Awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
And I think it's important too, because as professionals who work in early learning, we tend to have some sort of tricks of the trade. You know, it's it's certainly not that we know anything or everything about being a parent. That's learned to become a parent. But when you work with children, you have a few little tricks up your sleeve. So we would love to hear a few of those that you have today. So let's talk about early literacy. I think, first of all, a lot of people equate that term early literacy with learning to read. So can you tell us a little bit about the difference of those two things and about some of the other skills that are involved in the development of early literacy as it relates to infants and toddlers?
Yeah, so early literacy, I think a lot of people think of sitting down and reading with their kid. That's early literacy. But yeah, you're right. Literacy is so many different parts. And it's not only that reading and understanding words in books, it's writing, it's being able to speak, there's a lot of different things connected. And so when I think of early literacy for babies and toddlers, I usually connect that with the 5 areas of development. So we're looking at cognitive skills, language skills, social emotional, self-help, and what am I missing? Motor skills. So when I was thinking about that and thinking when I talk to parents about early literacy, really all the skills in each of those areas connect to make early literacy or make your early literacy skills. So working with any of those areas of development, you're actually encouraging early literacy. For example, when we look at cognitive skills, we're thinking about, having kids process information and following directions. If you're working on that during the day, you're really working on early literacy. In the communication domain, we have the receptive language, so that understanding, and then the expressive. Both of those are very important. So when your kid's learning to talk, there again, it's early literacy. And even motor, which people don't think about motor skills and reading, but it's huge to have your child to be able to point to a picture in a book and to turn pages. And without motor skills, you can't do either of those. And so that's included. For self-help, those are the skills that to become more independent. And so a child being able to look at a book and discover what they want to learn about independently, I feel is a big part of self-help. And then social skills. I think children can learn so much from the social emotional piece to literacy. So when we're looking at books and we're looking at the faces of the characters, that's a great way to explore that social emotional side as well. So really, literacy, early literacy, just encompasses all of those areas of development. So depending on which area you're working on, it's probably going to help them in the future with their early literacy skills.
Yeah. This is such good information, right? Because it's like, okay, so whatever I'm doing, I'm actually working on it.
Pretty much. There's like, when I think about it, I'm like, it's pretty hard not to be working on early literacy at all time, because when you think of, if you think of yourself reading a book or writing, there's so much that goes into it. It's not just cognitive skills. It's not just language skills. It's everything, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us a little bit about the specific kinds of things that go into early literacy skills? Like, I tend to tell people about how, it, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean sitting down and looking at a book, but just pointing out letters, having alphabet blocks around, or things like print awareness,
yes.
or like literally if your child is mouthing a book, that's early literacy.
It is, yeah. Even if you're taking a walk outside and you're looking at the stop sign, that's early literacy. That's an example of that environmental print that you're talking about. That I think environmental print is, then that's just the print that's, on your food labels, on your shampoo bottle. And so taking a moment and just looking at that stuff with your child, which sometimes that's the first kind of things that they will recognize, is that box of Cheerios. Well, they may not be reading it, but in a way they are. They understand that the symbols mean a certain thing. And so using environmental print to teach, and that takes the pressure off of having tons and tons of books, which I love books. Books are great. But using things like environmental print, your grocery ads, looking at your mail together, just things like that. It's something me and my son do. Is Wednesdays, the grocery slicker comes and we sit down and we look at everything in it. And, even him crunching it up with his hands and throwing it, that's okay too. It's part of discovering paper and just everything. So looking at those experiences, I think, and like you said, with the little babies, even when their vision is just starting to come in, so they're starting to follow things with their eyes, we consider that early literacy development. When we would do assessments, we would, this is the early literacy coming in, is how they move their eyes. Can they reach up for something? Like we've said, is a lot of things go into early literacy.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people understand that sense of, when we break down all of these different sort of domains of development, right? We have age appropriate skills, and those often look very different. Emerging skills look different than from a skill that is already acquired, yep. Right? So, for instance, in the context of communication, if you have a child who is babbling around 6 months, that is an emerging expressive language skill for a 6-month-old or a 4 to 7 to 9-month-old, right? That is an age appropriate skill related to expressive language. And so when we're talking about early literacy in an infant, just like you were saying, Kayla, we're looking at emerging skills like, is the child looking around at things, right? Like those high contrast, black and white, high contrast images, for instance. Awesome. That's fantastic. And I think really, really helpful for parents and caregivers. Anything else that you want to say before we move on?
I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know.
Fantastic. So let's actually take just a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we will hear a bit of a few tips and resources from Kayla about specifically how to foster early literacy skills in infants and toddlers. Parenthood is the great equalizer. Regardless of cultural, linguistic, or socio-emotional let's try that again. Parenthood is the great equalizer. Regardless of cultural, linguistic, or socio-economic background, all parents face the enormous responsibility of raising humans. The Strength in Words Community Lab focuses on empowering families through knowledge and connection, supporting parents so you can support your children. We help parents and caregivers recognize the value of everyday interactions and everyday objects to support all aspects of your baby's development so you can find the joy in the mayhem. We were not meant to parent in isolation. The Community Lab is a content and community hub that brings you peace of mind you have what matters when you need it most. Bite-sized morsels of developmental information, activity ideas to apply right now, parent support groups so you can feel empowered and supported in your parenting, developmental music classes, unprecedented access to professionals and special guests like the one we have today, and an active, engaged community of others like you. The Community Lab is an all-in-one resource that is not one size fits all. To take your free 1-week trial and join us for everything I've just described, as well as member access to Q&A sessions with the featured guests I bring onto the podcast, come check out community.strengthinwords.com. All right, Kayla, let's hear it. Give us your top 3 tips for parents and caregivers. How can we foster early literacy skills with our infants and toddlers?
Yeah, so the first tip that I would say is to be patient. I remember one of the things when working with parents is sometimes it can be frustrating when you want your toddler to sit and look at a book, or maybe your baby's not interested in a book. Just be patient with that love of books to come. It might not be right away, and it might be different than you expect. And, looking at that developmental side, of what's appropriate. So sitting and reading a book from front to cover with your toddler, it may work. Some days it works at my house, and my boy will sit and he will listen to books 3 in a row. Other days he won't, and that's okay. So I would say I want to talk a little bit about the book side, that, don't think your child isn't interested in early literacy or is lacking some skills because they're not interested in books. Like we said before, there's a lot of information, or there's a lot of other things that go into early literacy. And looking at books is something just to be patient with. Always explore them, give them the option, but just be patient with it. That, interest in books will come. Just don't expect, to sit and read for an hour. You have to really look at what's appropriate.
Yeah. And to that end, I mean, if we think about it, I'm not always in the mood to sit and read for an hour. I might have every intention to sit and look at a book and then just not have the bandwidth to do it. Yes. Right? Be falling asleep because I'm tired, because I'm a parent of a tiny person, 2 tiny people. But also just the idea that, and I hope I'm not taking on your next point or anything, but the idea that it doesn't have to be reading from front to back. Mm-hmm. You can sit there and just take a little picture walk, look at the pictures and point to specific things and talk about the things you see, or ask about what they see, or I wonder if we can find this, things like that. But I'll let you continue, Kayla.
Yeah, no, those are great ways to explore books with children other than just sitting and reading. The next point I had was to follow your child's lead. So that goes with looking at books, follow their lead with it, watch their cues. Do they want to look at the book? Do they want to move on? Do they want to flip the pages? That's okay. It's okay to flip through pages, but also with the following your child's lead. When you're working on early literacy skills, you can, pick an area of development that they're maybe interested in or you want to work on, and use that as that early literacy time. So if they want to draw with chalk on the sidewalk, that's huge. That's great early literacy. If that's something they're interested in, is drawing, or I'm trying to think of other things. If you're at the grocery store and your little one's sitting in the shopping cart, what are they interested in as far as environmental print? Watch their cues. Are they starting to point at things? And so you just kind of build up on what they're doing and what they are interested in. And that goes for kind of all areas of development. We watch their lead And then we kind of just encourage skills that way instead of, maybe picking something that they have to do in order to make a skill happen. I hope that makes sense now that I'm saying it. I'm kind of rambling.
I totally follow it along. I think it's so important. It's something that we often as grown-ups have to relearn how to do because we've now been programmed as adults to think of things so linearly, right? If I sit down and help my child, if I get these blocks out, then we are going to, here's what they have to learn is to how to build a tower, right? That's how we play with blocks. But thinking about things a little bit differently and just, like you said, following your child's lead. If they want to mouth the blocks, awesome. Yeah. Just talk about what they're doing or model to them what another way to do it. But accepting what they're doing and then talking about it or taking it a step further is a wonderful way to follow your child's lead. Great.
Yeah, like for my son, he's a busy little guy, and coloring isn't a huge thing for him. Now, if I were to get out finger paints, he loves that, and you're working on the same skill. So you can have two activities that work on the same skill that are very different, and pick the one that your child enjoys. Don't, you always offer other activities, but don't feel bad about them not wanting to sit and draw or, find a different way to work on the skill. But that kind of leads into my next point, which is just to be creative and just have fun with it. Don't stick yourself in a box as far as how to work on early literacy. Keep it open. Use what's around you. Look at when you're in different environments, how you can encourage skills. So, even taking a trip to the library, that's a great way to introduce. Obviously, there's lots of books there too, but, you don't have to just pick out one book, follow their lead with that. But just be creative, and don't get too stuck on just looking at books as far as working on early literacy skills. Depending on your age of your child, you're going to use different techniques too, to just encourage the skills that they will need someday to read or write, and to understand, comprehend books.
Yeah, I love it. And I think your point about bringing the environment into where whatever you have, and I think the mailer, those things that everyone gets that just we go often straight into the bin or or we cut out the coupons, whatever our thing is, that those things are gold for infants and toddlers. And I loved your point about how even just crinkling it up and throwing it into a box or something.
My son's favorite toy, from probably 6 months to 12 months old, was just digging out all of our recycling containers. So every box we had, he would dump it all on the floor, every container. But look at all the print he was looking at and all the pictures while he was doing, something that you wouldn't sit and, well, I'm going to teach my kid early literacy. Here, look at these Tupperware. He found it on his own. It was interested him. And he would sit and be entertained, and he's working fine motor skills. He's opening and shutting things. He's looking at pictures, processing information. But really, when you let kids explore, and then just encourage it that way, that's a great way to go about learning.
Exactly. Awesome. So I think that takes a lot of the pressure off of us as parents too. Really, if you, all you need, again, is pretty much what's in your house already. Yes. So that's it. It's not about the electronic toys. It's about the paper materials, the recycling containers. It's about all of those things, which can be used to develop early literacy, to develop motor skills, and all of those different things like we talked about. So awesome. What about some favorite resources for parents who are interested in learning more about some good places to find good tips and resources, Kayla?
Yeah. So if you're looking online, my site, I've got a lot of information on there. I actually just put up something a couple weeks ago about 50 ways to discover early literacy with your little ones. So if you're looking for a lot of examples, that's a good place to look.
We'll put the link to that in the show notes as well for this episode.
Yep, that would be great. And then I think if you go 0to3.org, they have a lot of stuff on early literacy too, if you're looking for more information on how to encourage it and what those skills look like as well.
Yeah. I also have a couple of other podcast episodes that address literacy skills, so I'll link to those as well. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Kayla. And thanks to all our community lab members who are listening live here. We will continue the discussion and open up for a Q&A session for you guys in just a minute. For everyone else listening from home or on the go, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.